It happened during one of the last shifts I ever worked at the diner. I was 19, saving up for college and working the night shift at a 24-hour spot just outside of town. It wasn't glamorous, but the regulars were friendly and the tips were decent. On this particular night, it was just me, the manager Luis, and Marissa, a high school senior working part-time. Business was slow. Just a few stragglers finishing their meals, so we were getting ready to clean up and close off a section early. I remember the bell over the front door ringing. 2 men came in, one tall and lanky, the other short with a beanie pulled low over his face. I didn't recognize them, which was already unusual for that time of night. They didn't sit, they just stood by the counter, quiet, watching us. Luis, who was always calm, greeted them with a polite, "Kitchen's still open if you're hungry." No response. They just looked at each other, and then one of them stepped forward and said something that made my stomach drop. "Don't move, just keep your hands where we can see them." There was no shouting, no dramatics like in the movies, just a quiet tension that filled the air like static. I froze. Marissa looked like she was about to cry. Luis kept his hands visible and told us to do the same. The tall one stayed with us in the dining area, while the other one led Luis back toward the office. I could hear drawers opening, metal clinking, the register being emptied. Every sound felt razor sharp. The tall guy kept glancing at the door and out the windows. He was sweating, nervous. That made him more dangerous. Time passed, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20. I couldn't tell. Then something must have gone wrong in the back, because I heard Luis yell. Not a scream, just a short burst, like he was startled. The guy at the counter flinched and turned his head. That's when Marissa ran. She bolted through the kitchen doors and out the back. I wanted to follow, but I couldn't move. I thought if I did, the guy would panic. Instead, he ran too, not after her, but straight out the front door, yelling something to the other one. I waited. I didn't even know they were gone until I couldn't hear the tires anymore. The police came. Statements were taken. They never told us everything that happened in the office, but Luis was okay. Shaken up, but okay. He never came back to work after that. Neither did Marissa. The diner stayed open for a few more months, but the vibe was never the same. Customers dwindled. The staff turned over. Eventually, the owners decided to shut it down for renovations, but it's been years now. The building's still there, just empty. Sometimes I drive by late at night, and I swear, I can still see the kitchen light flicker, like someone's still cleaning up for the next shift that never comes. I was only a few months into my job at Le Pavillon, a fine dining restaurant tucked away off a country road about 20 minutes outside the city. It had an old-world charm. Crystal chandeliers, candlelit tables, velvet booths. The kind of place where reservations were made weeks in advance. Everything had a routine. Everything had a rule. The biggest rule of all? Never serve table 17. It sat in the far corner of the dining room, partially hidden behind a decorative screen and draped in a white cloth. Most nights, I barely noticed it, but sometimes when the restaurant was nearly empty and the wind howled against the windows, I'd catch myself glancing over, half expecting to see someone sitting there. I asked my manager once, jokingly, what would happen if someone did sit at table 17. She didn't laugh. "Just don't," she said. "Trust me." That should have been enough, but I was curious, too curious. It was a slow Thursday when it happened. Rain pounded against the glass, thunder growled in the distance, and we had only 3 tables occupied. I was refilling waters when I saw him. A tall man in an outdated gray suit, soaked from the rain, standing at the entrance. He didn't have a reservation. He didn't take off his coat. He simply pointed to the corner and said, "Table 17, please." I froze. "Sorry, sir, that table isn't in use." "It is tonight," he said, calm as stone. I looked around. No manager in sight, the host had stepped away, and something about the man, the way he stood so still, so expectant, unnerved me. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But instead, I nodded and led him there. As I pulled the cloth from the table, dust stirred into the air like it had been trapped for years. The man sat without a word and placed an old leather wallet on the table. "I'll have the duck confit," he said, "and a glass of red. No menu necessary." I don't know why I obeyed. Maybe it was his voice, so firm yet polite. Maybe it was the way the candle at the table lit itself. No lighter, no match. As the evening wore on, strange things started happening. The lights flickered. My watch stopped. Every customer who'd been dining quietly disappeared without a word. 1 second they were sipping wine, the next, gone. I ran to the kitchen. "Where is everyone?" I asked. The chefs looked at me like I was insane. "There's nobody out there," one said. "It's been dead all night." When I returned to the floor, the man was staring at me. "Sit," he said. I couldn't move at first, but then I did. I sat across from him, and he smiled. "I used to come here every Thursday. Same table. Same order. Until the fire." "What fire?" I asked, though I already felt the answer in my bones. He looked around slowly. 1912, he whispered. We never made it out. The candle flickered. The room blurred at the edges. For a moment, I swore I saw the restaurant the way it used to be, packed with people in Edwardian dress, a live piano in the corner, the smell of cigar smoke and perfume. Then everything snapped back. The man stood, nodded at me, and walked away, leaving no footprints, no wet coat, no wallet, just the faint scent of smoke. And the table, once again, draped in white. I never told anyone. But sometimes, when it storms and the restaurant is quiet, I glance over at table 17, and every so often, the candle lights itself. I started working at Eddie's Diner last summer. It's one of those old-school spots that locals swear by. Cracked leather booths, a jukebox that never works, and a greasy smell that somehow becomes comforting after a few shifts. It didn't take long to get the hang of things, but from the very beginning, I noticed him. Every night, like clockwork, he'd walk in around 8:15, tall, pale, maybe in his late 60s, dressed like he stepped out of a different decade. Long coat, wide-brimmed hat, thick glasses. Never smiled, never talked much. He always sat in booth 3 by the window. He always ordered the same thing, rare steak, black coffee, no sides, no dessert. And he always left a $20 tip, even though his bill was never more than $10. At first, I didn't think much of it. We had regulars. But this guy, he was different. He didn't just sit. He watched. Not in a creepy way at first, just observant. Like he was studying something, or someone. And when I started working the grill instead of bussing tables, I could see him more clearly from the back. Every now and then he'd glance up at me through the glass, like he was timing something. One night, it was dead slow. Only 2 tables filled the whole place, and he was at his usual booth. As I was scrubbing the counter, I noticed something strange. He wasn't eating. He had his hands under the table, head tilted down. Not in prayer or anything, just still. Curious, I stepped out from the kitchen and asked if he needed anything. He didn't answer, just slid a manila envelope across the table and said, "You might want to look at this before your shift ends." Then he got up and left. Didn't touch the steak, coffee was cold. Inside the envelope were sketches, hand-drawn portraits of all the diner staff. There was Marcus, the server who worked mornings, Gina, the cashier, and me. Mine was the most detailed, right down to the mole on my jaw and the tattoo on my wrist. In the corner of the drawing, he had written, "He watches the watchers." Chills ran up my spine. At the bottom of the stack were notes, paragraphs written in neat block letters, observations, schedules, habits. When Marcus took smoke breaks, what brand of gum Gina chewed. The exact time I arrived for my shifts, what bus I took home. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't call the cops either. There wasn't technically a crime, just deeply unsettling behavior. I showed my manager the next day, and we quietly agreed to keep an eye out. But he never came back. No one ever saw him again. To this day, I have no idea who he was or what his intentions were. Some days I wonder if I imagined the whole thing. But I still have the envelope, tucked away in a shoebox under my bed. Sometimes late at night I pull it out and flip through the pages, just to remind myself that you never really know who's watching you or what.